In our series about the history, culture, and challenges of the ancient Near East, this section focuses on Israel. Historical overview. In the 5th to 4th millennium BC, tribes of the Gassalian culture settled in the Levant. They raised livestock, cultivated crops, and were coppersmiths. 3500 to 2000 BC. In the 3rd millennium, the first cities of a later culture appeared in Canaan. They were in regular contact with the major neighboring cultures, Egypt, Mesopotamia, etc. The image shows a huge circular altar of that time with a diameter of 7 meters. An inscription from the 24th century BC from Tel Marduk near Ebla could indicate that the inhabitants already considered themselves Canaanites at that time. Middle Bronze Age, 2000 to 1550 BC. With the decline of the Akkadian Empire around 2000 BC, many people from Mesopotamia settled in Canaan to make a new start. It was around this time that Abraham, the forefather of the Israelites, left Ur in Mesopotamia for Canaan. His descendants, the tribal fathers of the later 12 tribes of Israel, settled in Egypt during a famine, Genesis 46 to 50. The image shows Abraham's probable journey of northern Mesopotamia to Canaan. The invasion of Egypt by the Hyksos from Canaan also took place towards the end of this period. Late Bronze Age, 1550 to 1200 BC. According to the biblical account, the Israelites grew into a nation of slaves in Egypt. One of them, Moses, who was raised as a foundling at the royal court, led his people out of Egypt and into Canaan against the resistance of the Pharaoh. They fought their way through the land and spread out. According to the biblical account, life and freedom in their own land was a promise God made to Abraham for his descendants, Genesis 13 verses 14 to 18. Under Moses' leadership, the fulfillment of this promise drew near. Yet Moses warned his people that they would only be able to remain in the land permanently if they remained faithful to their God, Deuteronomy 30 verses 15 to 20. One interesting historical document from this period is one of the Amarna letters, see image. In it, Abdi-Hepa, a city prince in Canaan appointed by Egypt, asks the Pharaoh for military assistance in the fight against the Habaru so that Bethlehem is not lost as well. The Habaru were fugitive debtors or slaves who were destabilizing the country with raids. They are not identical with the Hebrews, as they appear to have been a heterogeneous group. But as fugitive and militarily active slaves at that time, the Hebrews could well have been counted among the Habaru. Iron Age, 1200 to 500 BC. The Israelites/Hebrews conquered most of the land, but for several hundred years they were only sporadically led by individual leaders, the judges. Around 1000 BC, their first king, Saul, got anointed. He is succeeded by King David, who proved to be a good king, military leader, and humble man of faith. Future kings of Israel were measured against him. He leads the country to peace. His son and successor, Solomon, was a philosopher and diplomat who maintained peace with his neighbors. But the Golden Age under Solomon did not last long. In his pursuit of diplomacy, he went so far as not only to marry many foreign princesses, but also to worship their gods. His father David and God himself had already warned him against this. As a result, his kingdom split into two parts, Israel and Judah, during the reign of his son Rehoboam, 1 Kings 11 verse 13. In the northern kingdom, there were frequent changes in power and a turning away from the faith in Yahweh, while Judah remained more stable but also experienced religious and political crises. The northern kingdom of Israel was conquered by the Assyrians in 722 BC, and part of its population was deported. The southern kingdom of Judah lasted longer, but was defeated in 586 BCE by the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar II. Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed, and a large portion of the population was taken into Babylonian exile. The image shows a letter written shortly before the city of Lachish was defeated. It was not until the Persian rule, particularly following the decree of King Cyrus II in 539 BC, that the Jews were permitted to return to their homeland. During this period, the reconstruction of Jerusalem and the temple began. Israel also experienced a religious reorientation and consolidation of faith and identity. Daily life. To get an idea of what daily life was like in ancient Israel, choose one of the following sources. The article, What Was Life Like in Biblical Times on the Thora.com. or the video about daily life in ancient Israel on YouTube. An overview of religion. Ancient Israelite religion was distinctive in the ancient Near East for its movement toward monotheism, the exclusive worship of one God, Yahweh. This God was seen not just as a force of nature, but as a personal, covenant-making being who established a special relationship with the people of Israel. Foundational narratives, later preserved in texts of the Hebrew Bible, describe covenants with figures such as Abraham and Moses, through whom divine laws and promises were communicated. Watch this short video about some of the main stories/covenants of the Bible. https://bibleproject.com/videos/covenants. A central feature of Israelite religion was ethical and legal obedience rather than simply ritual appeasement. Laws such as the Ten Commandments emphasized moral conduct, social justice, and exclusive loyalty to Yahweh. Worship practices included sacrifices and festivals centered first around the portable Ark of the Covenant and later the Temple in Jerusalem, but prophets played a crucial role in critiquing empty ritual and calling for genuine righteousness. Unlike Mesopotamian views of a shadowy afterlife, early Israelite beliefs placed less emphasis on the afterlife and more on communal identity, justice, and faithfulness in this world, shaping a religious tradition that would profoundly influence later Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Values. In contrast to Egypt and Mesopotamia, in Israel, the king was not God's original means to secure order, as God himself rescued his people through Moses from slavery in Egypt and became their God. The people just requested a king, 2 Sam 8:1-9. But often the king departed from the will of God and prophets were sent to accuse the authorities of oppressing the poor. Amos 2 verse 6, 5 verse 12, 8:4-6. If you like, you can get a fascinating overview on the kings of Israel through this short video. https://bibleproject.com/videos/chronicles. This task is optional. The Hebrews believed that God, in his wisdom, set the foundation of the world and the functioning of all elements in it. Proverbs 8 verses 22-31. Although the biblical book of Proverbs rarely mentions God, there was never any question of what we would call absolute knowledge functioning independently of their faith in Yahweh. Rad 1993:64. Because every Israelite could achieve all necessary wisdom by fearing God, Proverbs 1 verses 1-7. A king was not necessary, and God himself made a covenant with his people and revealed his commandments. Exodus 20. Leviticus 19 begins with the presence of Israel's holy God among them as a reason why they should live a holy life, in contrast to a selfish life driven by desires, and in the following it demands: munificence toward the poor, 9-10, mindful communication, 11-12, a righteous life, 13-18, and good treatment of foreigners because the Israelites themselves were foreigners in Egypt, 33-34. Although the character of Proverbs, indicative, differ from the law, imperative, and expect more responsibility from people, their foundation is God's created and revealed order, and they encourage a righteous life. Examples of Proverbs that reflect these values. Pride only breeds quarrels, but wisdom is with people who take advice. Proverbs 13 verse 10. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. Proverbs 16 verse 8. The discretion of a man makes him slow to anger. It is his glory to overlook an offense. Proverbs 19 verse 11. Don't say, I will pay back evil. Wait for Yahweh, and he will save you. Proverbs 20 verse 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will heap coals of fire on his head, and Yahweh will reward you. Proverbs 25 verses 21-22. Watch this short video on how a just life God expects from believers looks like. https://bibleproject.com/videos/justice. Examples of conflicts and how they were resolved. Despite the reality of God being among his people and affecting their lives, Israel often didn't live up to its call and needed to be warned by prophets, as mentioned above. The Bible is honest enough to depict the failures of God's people, but also describes the resolving of conflicts. Jacob, the progenitor of Israel, led a life of deception and being deceived by others, but his story also offers some good examples of handling conflicts. Although his father-in-law was angry that Jacob planned to steal away secretly with his family and property, both managed to display mutuality and participated in a ritual of reconciliation and a meal before they separated. A bit later, Jacob didn't dare to meet his deceived brother without humility and precious gifts of compensation. Genesis 32 verses 13 to 21. When conflict arose among the shepherds of Abraham and Lot because the land was too small to sustain their giant herds, Abraham settled the conflict by proposing a separation of the clans and humbly leaving the choice of a land of destination to his younger nephew. Genesis 13 verses 5 to 12. When the prophet Jeremiah was predicting an overrun by Babylon instead of hope and peace, the people wanted to kill him. But the elders could de-escalate the conflict by a look at the wider context of the conflict and reminding the king that also the prophets of the past transmitted such unpopular messages without being killed by the kings. Here, a mediator stepped in to stand up for someone else. The messages of prophets could lead people to recognize the possibility that God's people themselves could be wrong and no other should be blamed. In the past, Israel often suffered defeats because its leaders were overconfident in themselves or their election instead of trusting or obeying God. But the humble acknowledgement of own faults often led to a normalization of international affairs.